Okay, folks, Friday's episode of Beyond the Gates, 10 out of 10. I thought this was really good, and the promo for next week looks fire as well. But, wow, this is crazy. I think that initially fans thought that June was Barbara. Some fans thought June was Barbara's daughter. And the list goes on. But it turns out that Leslie, Dana, is actually Barbara's daughter. And ironically enough, she is she's to be the recipient of the lump sum of money that that Anita put together for Barbara's family. And now we could possibly see Dana living behind the gates. Holy crap. All right, folks. So let's go in. So Peaches tells, Leslie the truth and how her mom was, a singer and whatnot. And she had a good career ahead of her, but things didn't pan out the way she had planned because she got booted from the group. And then from there, she found out she was pregnant. Now, it was never known exactly who the father was because Barbara wouldn't say. Now, Peaches, remember, Leslie's quote-unquote mom, thought what they had wasn't a long-term relationship. Now, she also says that, look, Leslie, you went nuts as a teen, and you're mentioning how Eva rebelled, but that's not until she was an adult. But it hurt when you started calling me by my name instead of mama. And Leslie's sorry about that, but she mentions that it must have been hard for her birth mother, Barbara, to give her up. Now, the thing is, Peaches kind of says, like, actually, not so much because, number one, your birth mother never wanted kids and she was horrified to learn that she was pregnant to begin with. Now, I, on the other hand, dreamed of motherhood, but I couldn't never have a baby myself. So I was there during your birth and I called you beautiful. And your birth mother named you Dana Leslie. So technically speaking, Dana and Leslie are her names. There you go. And from there, Leslie was your grandmother's name. And Leslie starts breaking down. And that's when Peaches says that despite not being legal, when I held you, you were mine. There was no contract or anything. Your mom just up and left. And she died a few years later because she was in bad shape. It turned out that your mom died by her own hand and asked if you heard of the Articulettes. And that's when Leslie mentions, I love them. And I even went to their reunion concert recently and they honored Barbara or someone or whoever her name was. And that's when Peaches reveals that that was your mom. And Leslie is just shocked by all this. And she's unsure of what to do because, I mean, I don't know what to do with all this you just dumped on me. I've never even heard my mother's voice. And that's when Peaches mentions that she stands to make a fortune off of your mother's inheritance. So that's crazy. And let's not forget that Devin, when he showed up earlier this week, when Anita mentioned how use Barbara's voice on a remix of one of our songs with the girls instead of my voice, meaning that with the Articulates apparently a hot commodity now, and the royalties that might come off that song, Leslie is going to be set for life. Woo! All right, now, speaking of the Articulates, Vernon and Anita are over at their house talking about Ted and Nicole's divorce coming up soon. And that's when Anita's like, well, I think this divorce is a change for the better. And Vernon mentions how he feels responsible for both of his daughters and their husbands cheating. Now, when it comes to Ted cheating, I don't blame that on Vernon at all. That was Ted's own choice. I think, and I mentioned this a while back, but I think Vernon was low-key responsible. I mean, in retrospect, he was low-key responsible for these divorces. Not fully, but hear me out, people. Hear me out. I mentioned on Twitter that even though Ted cheated, what did Nicole say after learning about what went down with Martin and the cover up and everything? Any chance of us getting back together is gone. After she found out that Ted knew and her father made him not tell. That was it. So it stands to reason that she didn't say it was impossible, but she said any chance we had of getting back together is now gone. So that's kind of on Vernon. Because like I said before, I know Nicole jumped on Ted about this. What, you're telling me my father made you do it? Nicole and Anita don't really know who their father really is. This dude has power and influence, and he can ruin lives with a phone call. So with Ted and Bill not being Dupree's, they know better than to cross Anita and Vernon. So when Vernon says something, you do it. It's the same thing with Bill. As I mentioned, I low-key think that Vernon tainted him. That's not to say Bill was a stand-up, noble person from the get-go. He probably had some ambition there and saw Danny as a chance to level up his own livelihood. But Vernon helping him out, it came with a cost. You're going to have to be a fixer. Like, what did he tell Vernon? Vernon to his face? Like he was a hurt child. This was a grown-ass man, and he was breaking down in front of Vernon in terms of, you know how much I have to bear on my soul that weighs me down so you can sleep peacefully at night? And I feel like his father-in-law was probably the reason he low-key started to resent the Dupree name as well as his marriage, because it was a lot more than he signed up for. So that's why he probably started cheating. It wasn't due to anything Danny did wrong. It was because of her father. So you can go at me in the comments, but I do think that he's low-key responsible. But like I said, in terms of Ted cheating, no, that was just him being selfish. But yeah, Vernon, he's right. He's right. Now, Anita's just happy that neither daughter tolerated the cheating. At least Nicole didn't. I'm thankful she said that, because remember, Bill cheated a bunch of times. And from there, that's when the Articulates have their brief little goodbye. And they ask Anita if she would reconsider joining, but she's like, no, it's fine, it's good. And that's when Vernon's relieved that everybody was able to make peace. And he goes to prep for the upcoming semester of school here because, you know, he makes appearances and speaks and whatnot. So Anita's glad that everything is good to go. And that's when Anita brings up Barbara's name. And I wasn't ready to face you two until I was ready to open the box. And now she's just happy that we're all in the same room. And Sharon's like, yeah, I'm glad we were able to hash things out. So they have a tearful goodbye, but they're leaving on far better terms than when they were, you know, reintroduced to each other earlier in the season. Now, from there, they're going to move on and experience new things in life. Basically, enjoy the fame and whatnot that they couldn't after Anita left the group. So, from there, they hold hands and one last time, better together, sisters together. So, articulate strong. That's when Vernon pops back up and wishes someone from Barbara's, and actually Anita says this, she only wishes that someone in Barbara's family was in the audience and is sorry that she wasn't able to reach out to them. Oh, Anita, you'll find out soon enough. So that's when we go over to Nicole's house, and Danny's still looking fine as hell, by the way. Well, hell, all the ladies look good. What am I talking about? So Nicole calls Danny and Vanessa over to celebrate her upcoming divorce, and she's redecorated, putting little cutout Post-it notes over Ted's face in the photos. So they start drinking, and Danny mentions how her and Andre are, well, you know, he traded me in for someone much duller, so I'm single too. And they mention how Vanessa's the only one whose marriage is strong, but she quickly puts a nah, let's not call it that. So they start drinking, and it's like, hey, you know what? Every time we discuss a man, they have to drink. All right. So Nicole, if you say something, then you got to drink. Me, Danny, whoever. So that's when Danny celebrates a toast to Nicole's next ex. And it's like, wait, what? So from there, she starts dancing. They go bestie, go sissy. So they're having a good time. Now, speaking of drinking, in a less happy situation, Ted tells Andre, because he comes to check on his uncle. And it's crazy how, you know, Andre has checked on his uncle more than Ted's checked on his own son who's going through it right now. But yeah, Andre feels bad about the upcoming divorce, but it's no surprise. Ted sits down and has the audacity to mention that he feels blindsided, and it's just things are so vague with, Nicole. She has so many walls and she's so inflexible. And Andre talks about his own situation with Ashley, how he gave up Danny for her, and I just thought that she was a reliable woman, yet all of a sudden she ended up kicking me to the curb. And Ted's a bit surprised by that as well. So Andre feels played, and they start drinking, and I wasted time. I mean, I took a woman to Paris without even leaving the city, and yet all of a sudden she had a change of heart. And Ted decides to, I don't mean to sound like a caveman, but is there any such thing as a rational woman? And Andre says, that's not helping your case for a husband, right? So that's when Ted is just pissed off because he's being condemned for a decision he made decades ago. And Andre feels that, well, if you really want Auntie bad enough, you should try harder. And that's why, and that's yet again, it's I have been trying. Negro, you have not. You have spent far and away, like Vernon said in the last episode, you spent way more time trying to form a relationship with the daughter who played a major role in breaking up your marriage than your wife. Seriously. So, from there we go over to the hospital where Shanice and Ashley are talking, and Ashley mentions how, look, I'm just investing in myself. There's nothing to discuss about relationship, and things are still over between her and Derek. And that's when Ashley figures that, you know what, maybe I ought to learn a second language, anything but French, a nod to, Paris and whatnot. So that's when Derek shows up, and it turns out he got into an accident during the triathlon due to the fact that he went over the handlebars. So from there, Ashley freaks out, and Shanice reminds her, look, call Madison in order to treat the situation like any other patient. So from there, Ashley thinks that this is, her fault because Derek had nothing to lose. Now from that situation, Madison and Shanice talk about Derek's condition, and he wakes up when Ashley comes in, and she says that she needs to be there, but then Derek starts to freak out because he can't feel his legs, and Madison mentions the injury to his vertebrae, but she can't pinpoint the severity just yet until they operate. Derek's freaking out, and Ashley has to be part of the team, but the thing is, Shanice tells Dr. Montgomery that, look, they have a personal relationship, and everybody gets to work in order to get things going. So Ashley mentions that she loves Derek, and she tells him to move on from him, but I tried to move on, but I failed. So that's when Jan shows up, and they hug, and she freaks out over the situation and blames herself. But Jan mentions how, look, he's always been reckless, and it's not your fault. And then that's when Madison comes out of the room with some bad news. And simply put, it's not clear yet, but it's unknown if he will regain his nerve function in his spine where the damage happened. And there's a good chance Derek might not walk again. Yikes. But no, this isn't her fault. I get it, though. This was motivation because, he had nothing else to lose, so he went to this triathlon, and that's what his friends said when he came to the hospital. They were worried because he wasn't prepared for this. And now look at him. So, Ashley, you might have kicked Andre to the curb for kissing Danny, but now you might be permanently taking care of a patient who can't walk. So, yikes. You're going to be waiting on him hand and foot now. Oh, well. But yeah, that's all I got. Good episode. Catch you next week.